She was counting coins, not bills. Only coins, quarters and dimes spread across the checkout counter and across her open palm, her hand trembling as she tried to make the total work. $34.75. The cashier was waiting. The line behind her was growing. And this woman, this mother, was doing the mathematics of survival in front of everyone, and no one was looking at her. No one except Robert. And what happened next would unravel everything he thought he knew about himself. Before we go any further, we would love to know where you are watching from right now. Drop your location in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this is your first time here, please click subscribe so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Now let us get into it. Her name was Catherine. She had a son named Marcus, 9 years old, school uniform, standing very still the way children stand when they know their mother is under pressure. And a daughter named Emma, 6 years old, small enough that she still held the hem of her mother's blouse in her fist, peeking at the cashier with wide, curious eyes. Catherine worked 2 jobs, nights cleaning offices, days stocking shelves. She made just enough to survive, just enough that the children never went to bed completely hungry, but never enough that they ever truly had enough. Robert watched her from behind in the queue. He was in his early 40s. He had built a $70 million real estate empire. He had never married, never had children, and had long ago made peace with the particular silence of a life built entirely around ambition. He was not a man who stopped for people. He had 3 calls to return and a meeting at 6. He was not in the mood to be moved, and yet he could not look away from her hands. He recognized something in that arithmetic, the specific concentration of a person calculating not what they want, but what they can afford to lose. Something cracked open inside him that he did not expect and could not name. He stepped forward before he had decided to step. He heard himself speak before he had planned to speak. He said, "What if I give you my credit card for exactly 24 hours? Buy whatever you and your family need." Catherine turned. Her expression was not gratitude. It was not relief. It was suspicion, the careful wariness of a woman who had learned that things which sound too good almost always are. She searched his face. She found nothing that looked like a joke. Robert took out his Visa card. He pressed it gently but firmly into her open palm. He said 24 hours. That is it. And then he turned and walked away before she could give it back. Catherine stood at that checkout and stared at the card in her hands. Her children stared up at her. The cashier stared at the card. And for a long moment, nobody moved because something had just happened that none of them had a category for. A complete stranger had handed a woman he did not know access to his finances. No conditions, no forms, no contract, just a card, a time limit, and a choice. Robert went home that night and could not sleep. He sat alone in the dark of his penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittering 40 floors below him, a glass of water he did not touch. He thought about what he had done. Doubt came for him the way it always does, quiet and methodical. What if he cleaned him out? What if kindness was just another word for foolishness? He had spent his entire adult life building walls against exactly this kind of vulnerability. And in one unplanned moment at a grocery store checkout, he had handed a complete stranger the key to all of it. He sat in the dark and ran through every possible scenario. And then he waited. That was all he could do.
Meanwhile, Catherine stood outside the supermarket that same night, with 2 children beside her and that black credit card in both hands, and she could not move. She had never held anything like it. For years, she had operated entirely in the arithmetic of no. No, we cannot have that. No, not this week. No, maybe next month. No. And tonight, in her trembling hands, was a card that meant something she had almost forgotten how to say. Yes. She walked into the store. She bought shoes for Marcus first. Proper school shoes, sturdy, the right size. She sat on the floor of the shoe aisle and fitted them herself. And when Marcus looked up at her face to check whether this was really happening, she nodded. Yes. Then Emma's shoes, bright ones with Velcro straps, the exact pair Emma had pointed to 3 months ago and Catherine had quietly pulled her away from without explanation. She watched Emma's face when she put them on. That look alone was worth everything. She bought Marcus a proper winter coat, thick and warm, the kind he had needed for 2 winters. She bought school supplies, new notebooks, pencils, a proper pencil case. She bought food, real food, not the cheapest version of everything. Bags of rice, fresh vegetables, fruit, meat, cooking oil, spices. The kind of food that takes time to cook and fills a kitchen with warmth and smell. The kind of food that says, we are not just surviving tonight, we are living. And then she walked into the cereal aisle. She stood in front of the shelf for a long time. She found the box, the bright one, the expensive one, the one Emma always reached for and she always redirected. She picked it up. She held it, and something broke loose inside her that she had been holding tight for years. And she stood in the middle of that aisle at night, and she cried, quietly. The way you cry when relief is so large that your body does not know what else to do with it. She could buy the cereal. For the first time in years, she did not have to choose. She felt human again. She felt like her children mattered. And she stood there and let the tears come because she had earned them. She bought the birthday cake last. Emma's birthday was 3 weeks away. She had been planning to make something from a box mix she found on sale. Instead, she stood at the bakery counter and pointed to the one with the bright frosting and the candles and the design Emma would love, and she bought it and she carried it carefully to the cart like it was something precious, because it was. The next afternoon, Robert arrived in the parking lot when Catherine waited. Her car boot was open. He could see the bags from where he stood. Shoe boxes stacked carefully, a winter coat folded across the top, school supplies, the corner of a birthday cake box. So many bags. He stood and looked at all of it for a long moment and said nothing, because there was nothing to say. The evidence was right there in front of him, and it was not what doubt had prepared him for. Catherine walked toward him and held out the card, $987.93. Her eyes were still red from the night before. Her chin was up. She was not asking for approval. She was not ashamed. She was reporting what she had done with something she had been trusted with, and every dollar of it was accounted for in those bags. She said quietly, "All night, I thought about what my children needed most. For the first time in years, I did not have to choose. I stood in the cereal aisle and cried because I could buy the expensive cereal, the one Emma loves. I felt human again, Robert. I felt like my children mattered." Robert looked at her the way you look at something you did not expect to find, with the particular attention of a person who is recalibrating everything they thought they understood about the world and about themselves. Then Emma walked up to him, both small hands holding a crayon drawing, a family with big round heads and a yellow sun and a greenhouse, and she held it up toward him with an expression so earnest and so proud that Robert, a man who negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching, felt something tighten at the back of his throat. He crouched down to her level. He looked at the drawing carefully. He said it was beautiful, and he meant every single word. He asked Catherine to dinner. She said yes before she had fully decided to. Dinner became another dinner. Dinners became dates. Dates became long evenings that stretched past midnight, the two of them talking in a way that Robert had not talked to anyone in years, about what they believed, about what they had survived, about who they were still trying to become. Catherine was not interested in his money. She never asked about it. What she wanted from Robert was something no one had ever asked him for before. She wanted him to show up, to listen, to sit beside Marcus on the kitchen table on a Tuesday night and help him understand a science lesson, not because it was useful, but because a boy needed someone to sit beside him, to look at Emma's drawings like they truly mattered, to be present in a way that his empire had never required of him. And slowly, carefully, he learned how to.
Robert sat beside Marcus at the kitchen table night after night, going through science homework with the patience of a man who had discovered that this small ordinary moment was worth more than any deal he had ever closed. He bought Emma professional art supplies, colored pencils, watercolors, sketchbooks, and the look on her face when she opened that box was something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. Catherine left her jobs. She became present for her children in a way that 2 jobs had made impossible for years. They cooked together in the kitchen, all 4 of them, loud and warm and wonderfully ordinary. Robert was completely out of his depth in that kitchen and everyone knew it, and it did not matter at all. Within 6 months, he proposed. On a warm evening on one knee, with a ring and a completely open heart. Catherine laughed through tears and said yes before the question was even fully out of his mouth. They married, a warm, intimate ceremony, the children standing right beside them. Robert in a fitted suit, Catherine radiant in white and gold lace, Marcus in a small, dark suit, doing his very best to look composed, Emma in her bridesmaid's dress, beaming so hard it filled the entire room. They walked out of that venue as a family. A real one, the kind neither of them had dared to imagine for themselves. 3 years into their marriage, Catherine got sick. The word the doctor used was cancer. Advanced. Robert sat in that consultation room with Catherine's hand held tightly in both of his, and he refused the answer completely. He got the best doctors, the best hospitals, experimental treatments. He spent $5 million in 9 months trying to find a different ending to this story. The doctors were gentle, thorough, and ultimately shook their heads. The cancer had spread too far. There was nothing left to do but say goodbye. Robert sat beside her bed every single day. He did not miss one. Marcus, now 17, stood by the window with his arms folded tight across his chest, holding himself together by sheer will. Emma, 13, sat on the other side of the bed with her sketchbook open on her lap, drawing her mother's face again and again as if she could keep her by capturing her precisely enough. Catherine held Robert's hand on the last day. She looked at him with her wide, dark eyes completely clear. No fear, no bitterness, only love. And she said, "Thank you for letting me be a mother. For 3 years, Robert, we had a real life. That is more than I ever expected." After Catherine died, Robert sold the penthouse. He liquidated half his real estate portfolio. He established a foundation in her name, the Catherine Foundation, providing scholarships for children of single mothers, housing assistance, and healthcare access. He signed those papers with her photograph on the desk beside him, and he did not look away from it once. This was the only deal that had ever truly mattered. He spent the rest of his life trying to answer the question Catherine had raised, simply by standing in a grocery store counting quarters and dimes. Why should any family ever have to choose? Marcus is a doctor now. Emma is a teacher. Robert never remarried. He had enough love. From those children, from the memory of Catherine, from every family the foundation has quietly reached that will never know her name, but is living differently because she once existed. A credit card changed Catherine's life for a day, but Catherine changed Robert's life forever. She taught him that wealth without meaning is the deepest poverty there is, that presence is worth more than any amount of money, that love, real love, is not something you acquire. It is something you earn slowly by choosing every single day to show up. If you were Catherine, standing in that parking lot with that card in your hand, what would you have bought first? And if you were Robert, knowing everything you know now, would you still give it? What does this story make you feel? Tell us in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this video moved you today, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching.